Dan Lanning hasn't done. I mean, he's been doing these spring practice.
He does little post-practice press
scrums.
conferences. Yeah. Hey, I saw this guy looking. He never gives you specifics on anything because that's what Dan Lanning does.
But he did do a sit-down interview with a show that he listens to.
Yeah, the Bussin' with the Boys podcast.
I've always been told since he got to Eugene that like his listening, he doesn't get a lot of listening time. His listening hours are 6 to 9 a.m. on the Odyssey app.
That's all he listens to.
And then he'll dive into all his football podcasts.
After the show is over, then he'll go into game planning for Ohio State.
Wrote us love letters last year. I love what Andy said about me. Right.
Big fan of mine. Right.
And so Dan Lanning did an interview with Bussin' with the Boys. Is that a Barstool
Used
production?
to be a Barstool. Now they moved on. I don't know where. They're
Sounds very Barstool-y.
FanDuel TV or they're
one of those entities.
One of those. They got bought.
Gotcha.
They were a Barstool, became a big deal, and they got bought. It's Will Compton and Taylor Lewan, who both played in the NFL.
We'll get to some cuts here in just a second. Swag's uploading them. He gave an anecdote that he got they said, what have you bought with your new contract?
Yeah, just got a new deal. He's one of the highest paid coaches in college football now.
And so he went and he said that he bought a custom vintage Bronco.
Like a 1974 vintage Bronco.
Right. And he said the person that bought one from this company that only restores and makes, in different badass ways, Broncos.
Such a cool thing to buy.
LeBron James.
He said LeBron was the last one to buy one, and then he thought, "Oh God, do I got enough money for this?" And you're like, "Yeah, you make $11 million a year now. I think you could afford."
It's ridiculous. That car is going to be $150,000, $180,000. Like you can afford it. You'll be okay. You'll recover.
It looks very badass. Like you get the one that's essentially like a convertible, no top, 2-door. That's a badass car.
I actually went to the company website because this company's been in my algorithm before.
Trying to sell you a Bronco.
It's kind of my dream car.
The Bronco is, huh?
What
is it about the old Bronco for people?
It's the way.
I'm not a car guy. Is it just the way that it looks?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, also they purr.
They do purr.
I've seen some videos with this vintage Bronco company, and when they start them, oh man, that noise. I'm not a car guy either, but there are a couple car things you can get me with.
I had a buddy in college whose family had an old Bronco, and he brought it down to Oregon. The problem with it was it wasn't a perfectly restored one, and a lot of times it just would die. It just wouldn't start.
Yeah, that and an El Camino are the two cars that I'm like.
El Camino, huh?
Yeah, and that's a thing from my uncle.
Okay.
He had a pretty sick, I think, 68 El Camino that he restored.
That'd be badass.
And so I've just always wanted one of those two cars. Anyways, I went and looked up that company because I remember what company they were. And I'm not saying this with 100% confidence, but he said the color of the car.
Kind of a gray, right? So it was an off gray.
And on the website, they have like 35 Broncos that they have restored and that they show you what their work looked like. And they don't say who they sell to. And I'm sure they've sold more than 35.
Yeah.
I was wondering if he got the year wrong because I found the second to last one is a 71 asphalt gray
71
Bronco two-door. That is exactly what he basically described.
Is there a listing price on that thing? I'm wondering how much these bad boys cost. What are we talking here?
They exclusively have a partnership with Ford.
They do. They get the parts from Ford.
So all those old parts are just from. You cannot go buy those parts.
No. The guy's an Oregon grad, too. I didn't realize that. The guy who runs the company and does this.
I would guess it's got to be $200,000.
You think $200K? I was trying to ballpark in my head. Are we talking $500K? Like we're on the scale of expense? Because this is this isn't like going and finding an old one and refurbishing it. They build these things through the parts from Ford.
Well, have you ever went and watched those Mecum Auto?
I have not.
I went to one of those shows once.
Yeah.
It's impossible to win.
Is it?
You got $180,000 cash.
You try and bid on an old classic car, $48.
But they have cars like that are going and they're bidding and they're ending at like $150,000.
Yeah.
So I'd imagine it's north of $150 if I was guessing.
Specifically made for him, certain standard. Yeah,
it's pretty sweet, man. And if it's the one if it is his,
Lanning's living a good life. He's making $11 million a year.
Yeah.
He's bought up like 7. I feel like I keep seeing stories about him buying more property around his house. He wants to have essentially a compound in Eugene.
Well, why would you not?
He's just buying everybody's houses. He's building pools. He's got a whole play thing going on down there.
His neighbors in Eugene getting bought out by him.
Ooh, tough, man.
I'm going to make an offer you can't refuse. This is where the offensive line, I think everybody in Eugene's just willing to do their duty. Is this going to be a team bonding activity site? You got it, Coach. I'll sell you my house.
Here is Dan Lanning on Bussin' with the Boys. They asked him about, hold on.
Searching.
I don't think I gave Swag one of the cuts I wanted.
Uh-oh. Which one did we forget?
Maybe the most, yeah. Yeah, down big to LSU. I didn't give him that one.
Okay.
That's okay.
We can play that one in the next segment.
Yeah, we'll start with this. We'll carry some of this over.
Yep.
Here is Dan Lanning on just general takeaway. First year in the Big Ten. It couldn't have gone better.
They went undefeated and won the conference championship.
I mean, you couldn't have written a better script. They had a big floating duck in the river in Indy, and they came out and said, we do it mighty different, and they did. They went undefeated, and nobody could stop them. Here was Dan Lanning on the first year in the Big Ten.
I mean, I loved everything about it. I enjoy being at this conference. I think it starts with our conference, with Tony Petitti, our conference commissioner. The schools that are a part of it make this a lot of fun. The travel for football is a lot different than maybe the other sports. Like, it's enjoyable, for us. So, yeah, it was everything I'd hoped it would be. You got some unbelievable teams, really competitive conference, some really cool venues. I think it's a lot of fun for our players and our staff.
I will not reveal names, but this weekend I met a few listeners at different places, and I've always loved meeting listeners. It's great. It always catches me off guard. It makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Most of them are really cool people.
Hey, Sprague!
I met a couple at the Hoop Summit, and I will not reveal a name, but somebody I met used to work at the Pac-12. And I said, well, did you leave the Pac-12 before it crumbled, or did they force your hand because it crumbled so you had to leave and go find a gig? And they said, no, I left because it crumbled.
Went down with the ship.
And I said, could you tell me something? Because you know this. You worked for the conference. Did you guys have any idea leading into the end of the conference? And he just looked at me straight-faced. No. In fact, Kliavkoff was telling us the opposite. Everything's great. Big news is coming. Can't wait to share it. That was a Pac-12 employee telling me what the final days were like as he had to pivot and find a new gig because the conference was stupid and led by an idiot and run by dumb presidents.
Yeah.
Didn't even know until hey, it's over.
Think about all the people in media that were reporting that deal's a done deal. It's just a matter of time. They'll sign it. ESPN, Fox, little Apple TV, $30+ million a school. They'll be totally fine. It's right around the corner.
It's a shame that people in society forget and we just move on.
Just
and
move
we
on.
Don't hold
that wasn't a thing.
That was all time bad.
Somebody
reporting.
sat next to Swag on an airplane and said, "Don't worry, deal's on the horizon. It's coming." Swag sends us a text. Yeah, I'm sitting next to it. It's coming. It's on its way. Here it is. And where's the conference at now?
It's like all-time
Where's
bad
the conference
reporting.
at now? Because I think people hopefully will realize this at some point. When you're talking to an organization or a powerful entity or a conference commissioner, whoever it might be, sometimes they want you to report what they want out there in the news, not what is actually going to happen.
What? Nobody knew what USC was up to.
A little bit of a PR spin there. You telling me that none of that was true behind the scenes? No, none of it was.
The word, I just felt, it was really nice, and I felt for him, and I kind of chuckled like, damn, man, you guys had no idea, and he just straight lied. He's like, yep.
Yeah.
Brutal.
I mean, I'll never forget that couple of weeks stretch of shows.
I'll never forget
dead.
the show we
it's
did
alive.
the day it died.
It's dead. It's alive. The
Oregon and
Pac-12
Washington are gone.
Yeah, and we were on the air when it all
was
happened. And then the first thing in the morning, it was the conference was going to find a way to survive, and Kliavkoff had gotten them a grant of rights deal in front of them at the last second or whatever it was.
No, it was, remember, the show was leading off with the actual reporting on the West Coast being, they're about to sign this morning.
Yeah, that's what it was going to say. That it was going to be signed. And then an hour later, it was a national reporter who was like, nope, they're not going to sign. Oregon and Washington are right now on the phone with the Big Ten.
Just changed their mind within a 40-minute span of making a new change to a conference, as if that was like a real thing.
I'll never forget that day, too, because that was the day, ironically, my phone was blowing up all day. Because I think it became official when we were off the air. That was the first day we got Teddy Ballgame's first ultrasound. And I remember walking around, I'm like, my head's spinning. My team's leaving the conference. I'm having a kid. What the hell's happening right now? My world's spinning, man.